On 5, 4, 3, 2. Kim, thanks so much for being here. Nice to see you in this format. Last time, or the first time we talked or we met, I think was on the trade show floor at MJ Biz. I'm more comfortable here than on the trade show floor in Las Vegas, so it's nice to see you.
Me too.
Yeah, right. I'm a lot less, I'm better rested and a little more humidity in the air, so I'm okay with that. Before we even get into sort of the company, the background, where you are today, where you're going tomorrow, over I think it's your left shoulder. There's a cool framed thing, and I just was looking through your website. What are we looking at over your shoulder? It's not a gold record or a platinum record, but maybe the business equivalent of.
Sure. You know, it's definitely one of the awards that Azuca has achieved that we're super proud of. This is the Inc. 5000 fastest growing private companies. And Azuca, was nominated for that for 2 years in a row and made the list 2 years in a row. And we were number 16 nationally in our industry category, which we were categorized as CPG. So to be number 16 fastest growing companies in that category was super exciting. We were having about a 3,000% growth rate year over year. And it was just a real kind of tribute to the Azuca team and our great partners out in the industry to see that much growth. So
give us a background about Azuca, and then I want to get to the 3,000% increase and how you deal with that. But give us sort of the origin story, and then we'll get to the sort of growth and scale.
Sure. So Azuca was formed in 2018. It was co-founded by myself and Ron Silver, who is a chef in New York, a cannabis aficionado all his life. But he was a chef who loved weed but hated edibles because of the, I don't need to tell the audience about the edibles problem. So Ron really set out to solve the edibles problem. I teamed up with him to then figure out how to commercialize and scale what I call advanced formulations. Some people call this category emulsions. It's actually broader than just emulsions because there are other technical approaches beyond emulsions, but how to really figure out how to bring these great advanced formulations to brands and manufacturers so that they can deliver the very, very best products to their end consumers. And by that, it's products that are fast acting first and foremost, that are predictable and that consumers can really trust the onset and offset and experience, and that frankly taste great. So we developed these formulations to enable that for end consumers, and at the same time developed a business model and a set of practices that enable brands to scale these formulations anywhere in the world. So it's really kind of a beautiful approach to this emulsion category, advanced formulation category, because we developed a basket of products that we call activators. We've trademarked that term. Mm-hmm. And what the activators do is they make any cannabinoid fast acting, enhanced bioavailability, easy to absorb, and also easy for the manufacturer to manufacture. And the business model is that we license the technology, the formulations, the SOPs, and then what we sell to our customers is the non-infused precursor ingredient that we can ship anywhere in the world because it is not yet infused with an active. Right. And then we kind of took all the hard part out. And what our customers do in the regulated cannabis markets is they take our activator, which, looks like this.
Yep.
And a thermal mixer, which we provide, that has a very small footprint, about the size of a computer. Right. And push a button, and in an hour, their infusion is done. So it's really very, very simple. It's predictable. We can train a manufacturing staff, a kitchen staff, at a partner in about an hour. So super straightforward. So that's what we do.
Well, I'm super straightforward. There's I would imagine hundreds or thousands of hours of science and engineering and chemistry and all those things behind the scenes.
Yes.
And getting from sort of working with the chef, your ideas, and getting it to market, it's and making it simple for the producer. Certainly, that's an easy thing to say in 2 or 3 minutes. It's very hard to do once. It's incredibly hard to do at scale. It's incredibly hard to do at scale when you're growing 3,000% a year, as you said. So how do you take it from sort of idea to not just a little scale, but year over year, 4-digit growth?
So I have to tell you, it's I've been in business for a long time, and most of my background is in high tech as an investor and as an operator. Figuring out this complex problem, both from the chemistry, as you said, the technology, the intellectual property, and then the practices of how to scale when you can't move, infused product or activated product across state lines. Hardest thing I've ever done, right? But also really fun because it required, I like to say, like all the skills I've ever had and a few I don't.
Right.
But it was that commitment to making cannabis friendly and approachable to the end consumer, right? Because this is still a scary, this can still be a scary product to a lot of people. And we want to normalize it and make it accessible and approachable, to our grandmothers, right? To use cannabis for relief or for sleep or for whatever they choose to use it for, right? And everybody else. And then make it easy for the manufacturers. That was the harder part, to do that, and also protect our intellectual property, because you're right, we spent years developing what looks sort of easy in a bottle, but there's probably at this point there's over 10 years of intellectual property development in each of our activators, right? So I literally, it was sort of like it dawned on me probably in the middle of the night, like how to take what I call the simplicity on the other side of complexity.
Right.
And how can we take all the hard part and put it in a scalable unit? How do we break it down into like Lego bricks?
Right.
So that we can solve this problem in this very complex regulated market. And came up with this idea of separating the activator as a component that we could then ship and scale. And then, I have a manufacturing background, and so scaling production and quality systems, and
Right, you're right up your alley.
That's right up my alley, right?
Right.
So the finance and investing side, the scaling and operation side, I'm like, okay, once I figure out what it is, I can scale it all day and all night. So we've really set the team up to be able to infinitely scale these solutions for customers anywhere. Now that's on the regulated cannabis side, right? Because you can't move activated product. We also serve the hemp market, and we serve that hemp market in the same way we serve the regulated cannabis market, by licensing the uninfused activator to some hemp partners. Some hemp partners want a finished ingredient. So we also, in the hemp market, we activate hemp cannabinoids for partners' final products. So be they gummies, beverages, tinctures. So in that market, we service the customer both ways, depending on what they want.
And certainly both sides have seen tremendous growth, maybe not exactly at the same time, but sort of cannabis and then hemp, and both are certainly large in the grand scheme of things relative to where they were. And I want to sort of ask you a question about the industry overall, because certainly there's economic pressures on those companies, certainly on the regulated cannabis side, that there's not a lot of money around to invest in these things. And while your input may, so I want to sort of talk about how that affects your business and what you're sort of doing about that. And certainly we saw this sort of strategic supplier financing model. I want to ask about that, because it is this industry that's trying to move forward with all these capital constraints, all these regulatory constraints, a regulatory environment that is uncertain as things move forward. But sort of how do you sort of fit into that?
So I was preparing for a panel earlier this year that kind of addressed that question, like what is going on in the capital markets in hemp and cannabis. And so I also spent over a dozen years in venture capital, and as an investor, I still do angel investing. And I was kind of wrestling with this question and with the data on the capital constraints for these cannabis and hemp companies, because you're right, the one thing investors hate is uncertainty.
Right. And the industry is often only uncertain, right?
Yeah, it's insane, right? Like there's nothing like it on the planet from an investor perspective. Put your investor hat on. So as I was thinking about how brands, are trying to come to market, trying to raise capital, hitting these walls, but have really interesting products, I'm like, what can we do? What can we do? How can we think differently? So in this panel, we sort of talked about traditional financing structures. So, debt, equity, friends and family, bank loans if you can get them, convertible notes, the whole sort of menu of financing options, which are very, very, very constrained for cannabis and hemp operators. They were, years ago, even more so now because the regulatory uncertainty just continues to kind of be a little, Tasmanian devil, right? It's just what? Like what happened yesterday? Like it's, I've been doing this since 2017 and we all expected it to get more rational over time, but it hasn't. It's gotten more and more and more complex.
The complexity has scaled.
Yeah. And you just saw the announcements this week on the hemp side and
from Ohio and other. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what our number one core value as a company is helpfulness, right? We want to be helpful to our brand partners, to our end consumers. And I'm like, how can we be helpful? And I realized that one of the things we could do is what's called supplier financing. And what supplier financing is that a supplier into a process, it's not super common, but it's also not super unusual, will finance the inputs, meaning, I'll pay for them.
Right.
And I will finance that for you. You're a hemp beverage brand or a cannabis brand. I'll finance that for you for a period of time because you're using my input. And because there's a long cycle of converting inventory into cash in this industry, like that could actually be really helpful to brand partners. So we decided to launch that initiative a couple of months ago to be helpful.
And sort of on the helpfulness model, it does sound helpful, certainly to a lot of these businesses that are they're all in early days. So like in relative terms, they're all in early days, but how has been the uptake and how was it received by the companies you work with, the brands and the companies you work with?
So it's targeted at new hemp brands. Mm-hmm. So there's been a nice amount of interest in it. And so we're just going to continue to put it out there as an incentive for new hemp brands. They're mostly beverage brands that are coming into our portfolio. And we think here's the thing that it does, when I put on my investor hat, I want my companies, my early stage companies that I invest in, I want them to use as much of their cash as they can to promote, sell, distribute.
Build brand. Yeah.
Right. So the less you can have tied up in inventory,
right.
You don't want your cash tied up in inventory.
Right.
So the real intent is to help kind of give a little shot in the arm so that those brands, instead of putting their cash into inventory for now, they're using their cash. I'm financing part of their inventory. Mm-hmm. They're using their cash to promote, market, and distribute their product.
Right. So and the better those companies do, the better you do too, right? The more inputs they buy.
Exactly.
It's a symbiotic relationship brought forward by sort of the realities of an industry sort of right now, but even in any industry, right? Like the new entrants don't want to spend all their money on inventory lest they have a warehouse full of inventory and nowhere to sell it.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And as you sort of look ahead, because it's a fool's errand to predict what's happening on either one, right? Like, what's happening with hemp-derived products in Ohio or California is different today than it will be tomorrow. Similarly, the way the cannabis markets look in New York or New Jersey, like it all looks unusual, right? Like there's no way to predict it. But like as you sort of plan ahead, you're still trying to plan your business. Like how are you looking at not necessarily the rest of 2025 because that's pretty well set, but like 2026 and beyond? Like, is there a way to bank on reform, or is it like steady as you go, always deal with what's coming at you? Like, don't make bad investments, like all those things. But like, how are you thinking about sort of years out, or can you even?
So the way I think about that is, my first job out of college was working on Capitol Hill. So
Mine too.
yeah, I've been involved in the policy world, just enough in all my career. Yeah, I feel really kind of in my gut that you cannot bank a business strategy on any, elected or policy body doing anything in particular. And I mean, you've seen this, Jay, hundreds of millions of dollars have been flushed, gone to zero in this industry because people were banking on, federal legalization or federal reform to happen in a certain time frame. And I just don't think it's prudent to build your business strategy around, there's going to be this regulatory outcome. My approach to this was, from day one, was this is going to be a chaotic industry, right? And what I need to do, what our team needs to do, is to figure out, like there's this map of possible outcomes, or you can think of it as a decision tree if you've ever done
Right.
decision analysis, right? There's this map of potential outcomes, and then in this industry, you kind of layer that each geography deals with all those outcomes differently.
A lot of different trees.
A lot of different trees, and so my approach has always been, you play on the field you've got, you play with the rules you've got, and you prepare for, as many contingencies as you rationally can prepare for to build a quality, profitable business that serves its customers consistently. Right. And so, so the way we play that is we have built this method of segmenting the process so that we can ship activator and our customers can scale. We can support a small brand, single state operator in Vermont, and we can support and do support, huge multi-state operators and multi-state brands like, Wana, Canopy, Acreage, GTI, right? And more. So I always think in contingencies. I always have, you got plan A, then there's plan B, C, D, so we are ready conceptually, right? To, if federal legalization happened tomorrow, our process would be able to scale into a market where there were no constraints on shipping product across state lines, for example, right? So there are no constraints in us doing that, but we can operate in this regulatory constrained environment for as long as we have to. And I think it will be rationalized. I mean, I was at a hearing on some new hemp rules in New Mexico, which is where we started in New York. We have, some people in New York and some people in New Mexico, Chicago, a few other places. But New Mexico is rethinking their hemp rules. New Mexico is an early adopter to being hemp friendly, but they're facing some of the product and safety issues that states are all over the place. So they're now reining it in. And the reality is, this, and everybody who's listening to this knows, is it's the same molecule. It's the same set of molecules. And at some point, I firmly believe we will have a rational, cohesive regulatory framework that addresses, distribution of adult, recreational products to adults, right? Higher dose medical products through a medical channel, dispensary channel, supplement applications, right? I think it will be rationalized because it's the same molecule. I just can't, I don't imagine a future where things stay as stupid as they are right now. I just don't, but I also and I would never, as I said before, bank my business or advise anyone to bank their business on the timeline for that rationalization.
Right.
Be ready for it, right?
Right. Maybe not ready tomorrow, but be ready tomorrow, or 1,000 tomorrows, or maybe more.
Yeah.
Right.
But play on the field you got. Play with the rules that we have today.
Yeah. Well, Kim, this has been great. I super appreciate it. Look forward to connect with you down the road. Certainly, maybe in Las Vegas again in a couple of months, I guess, a couple of weeks, a couple somewhere between weeks and months. But I appreciate the time, appreciate the insight, learning about the company, but also getting a view of sort of how to plan for the future when the future is uncertain. I appreciate that. Thanks so much. And we'll talk to you soon.
Great. Good to see you. Take care.